Welcome back to the coverage of YCS Bochum 2015. 1,107 players showed up bright and early this morning to make this one of the largest European Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship series of all time.
Yes, it's quite big. I believe it's, well, it's not quite fourth.
It's like in the top 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely in the top 10.
All right, and in our first round, we have seen Merlin Schumacher, well, absolutely dismantle the Nekroz archetype.
Yes,
piloted
Shadow.
by, with his Shadow deck, going up against Sona Günger and a Nekroz deck, and he completely destroyed it.
Completely wrecked it.
Yeah.
But that was, of course, because of Mistake and Anti-Spell Fragrance, Vanity's Fiend, just a lot of hate for...
Yeah, for that particular deck,
Yeah.
yes. And, well, today is all about how can you fight Nekroz, because some people saying there is no way to beat them, but that's of course not true. If you've just seen Merlin, you were like, wow, this has been a lesson. And in our second round, we also have a rogue deck, which is ZIng.
Yes, I've not really talked about ZIng since YCS London?
Something like
Something like that, yeah. It's still an incredibly good deck. It's going to get better with coming sets, definitely. There's a lot of cards on the horizon for them.
But what about it at the moment?
At the moment, it can make a lot of big guys, and it can make them immune to basically everything. So they can do very, very well, but they still are vulnerable to things like Trishula.
Okay,
and
so
things like that.
they are not ideally positioned to combat Nekroz, like Shadow seemed to be in our first round feature match.
It's possible that they could, but we'd have to look and see exactly what it is that he's playing here now. I don't speak German, so you may have to read some cards off.
All right, that's going to be fun. I mean, Suwani and Pixie and Bia and stuff like that.
You have
quite
the general.
easy.
He's also running Tauti, which is interesting. Tauti is actually the only tribute ZIng.
He, in this case, is Tibor Tojzan, who is from the area around Frankfurt in Germany. And his opponent is going to be Olliver Lukenda. If you have been a long-time follower of the coverage, you are going to be familiar with the name. He was in the top 32 of the World Championship qualifier last year, the European Championship. And he also advanced to the top 8 of YCS London, the event you just brought up, in 2014. Back then with a Shadow Burning Abyss deck. 60-card special. We haven't seen that one in a while.
No, that has been a very long time. I don't think anybody... I think people kind of realized that mixing them was cool, but they were really powerful on their own anyway.
It was a short-lived trend. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the event after in Milan, Olliver Lukenda did well again, but this time dropped all of the Burning Abyss parts and just went with straight Shadow.
Yeah.
All right. So much for the introductions. I would say that Olliver Lukenda is the veteran or slightly the favorite going into this game.
Very possible. He is also running a very, very strong deck.
All right.
So we'll have to really see how ZIng holds up.
So if you're rooting for the underdog, Tibor Tojzan is going to be your guy. So let's take you to the table where we got the guys ready. And as always, we got our useful app that will be able to feed you guys all the information you need to see what these guys are holding onto on the right-hand side of the screen. This time, the names are 100% correct. So Tibor is sitting on the left-hand side and Olliver is sitting on the right-hand side, as indicated by the colors behind their names, which also match the playmat that we have on the table, in case you never noticed this. Another cool feature. So Tibor, who's in the red zone, so to speak, is up, and Olliver is down. Tibor started with a Skill Drain and Big C Water of the ZIng.
Now, something that's great here is that Skill Drain doesn't really hurt ZIng at all, because all of the effects of the ZIng monsters give immunities to a Synchro monster, and they're all in the graveyard. So it's not the monster on the field that's affecting anything.
All right. So Olliver starts with a Nekroz of Unicorn, thanks to the Kaleidoscope, sending a Herald to the graveyard, which allows him to search his deck for yet another Nekroz Ritual spell card. Such a strong opening.
Yeah. Bryonic is in hand. I do believe it's actually spell or monster.
And what do you make of this opening?
Well, he doesn't really know what he's playing against yet, but it seems like a very, very standard play to have just a Unicorn on the field to start off with. He's thinking about attacking. Not quite sure what he's against. If he does attack, he's going to be in for a sad time. because it's just going to replace itself.
There is the attack into Big C. Water of the YCS. And it's also a worm, the latest introduction in terms of water archetypes. And there you see something that is often happening for these matches. As soon as the card is being flipped, the opponent is like, what does it do? So let's just hand it to me. And there we go.
He's just explaining that when it gets destroyed, it's going to special summon another ZIng from the deck. Each one can do this once per turn.
All right, what's going to be your next move here if you are sitting in Olliver's position? Got the cycle, got the Book of Eclipse. Raigeki, not so much, I guess.
No, Raigeki is just going to make everything replace itself. Book of Eclipse, again, it isn't massively favourable at the moment. I mean, it helps with certain cards. Now that's going to sit there. That gives us immunity to being destroyed by battle.
All right, so there we got the replacement, the Beyond Earth of the YCS. There goes Bryanek to the graveyard, and Olliver starts searching. I've spoken to a lot of players prior to this tournament, and I've heard some interesting strategies. For example, someone is going with 6 Samurai because he thinks that 6 Samurai are uniquely positioned to combat Nekroz.
Oh yeah, we had the 6 Samurai that came in and just completely decimated not that long ago, but it's got even better because Xian, you can run more than one now.
Yeah, but mostly they go for a Naturia Beast, in fact.
Yeah.
Because you can just simply negate all the spell cards, and without the spell cards, you can ritual summon, and without ritual monsters, Nekroz is not that powerful, really.
Not at all.
Alright, so, but here, Tibor has nothing to stop Olliver resolving a couple of monsters here. Now he flips the skill drain. After Valkyros hit the field. But that's not much of a problem for Olliver, is it?
Let's just...
And Tibor draws into a dark hole.
Which is really going to help him here, because it gets rid of all his opponent's monsters, and then he gains. And he also just bought a mistake as well.
Yes. So he's also running some main deck hate against the Nekroz deck.
Now he is going to have the opportunity here to Dark Hole, as it happens, special summon a monster, normal summon the monster from his hand, make a Synchro monster, and stop his opponent from making any of his searches.
That sounds like a pretty powerful play. And
yep, and there's the Zhao 2. Now Zhao 2 can discard 2 ZIng cards from your hand to special summon 2 ZIng monsters from your deck, one with 0 attack and one with 0 defense. Now he has a ZIng path, and he also has another ZIng monster in hand, so he can use the he cannot use the effect, unfortunately.
because of skill drain.
Yes, not quite sure why he's discarding there.
So let's bring that guy up again. And Olliver has to read every single card, which is not that surprising.
May have been a misplay there.
Did he just discard them?
Yep. He that was definitely somewhat of a misplay.
But he did set... Oh, he set the mistake.
Yeah.
So he just got rid of his hand and gained nothing in return?
Yep. It looks like he kind of forgot that that was negated there.
And kind of forgot about his own card.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first advice you can take away from this game. It really helps to read the cards.
Yes.
So that is definitely some bad news for Tibor, who's now only left with a skill drain, Xiao 2, and mistake. Although the Abscess, he still has 2 cards in hand. So he might not have done it. Or I'm just not sure, because I was checking the card text of Xiao 2 in the meantime.
He's just reading it. I think he's looking to see if he can special summon under it as well.
Alright. So Olliver's got a Senju of the 1000 hands, which is not as useful as it usually is with the skill drain active.
And he's just scooped. Well, he entered his turn, not scooped. That would be silly.
No. That would be a little bit premature. So Tibor now draws into a Raigeki, and now the app is up to date. So he did, in fact, ditch those 2 cards.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
Getting nothing.
Ooh, his opponent is banishing the Nekroz monster there so that he can go and get a ritual spell card, and mistake should be chained here. There we go.
There we go. Lots of good shutdown cards, the so-called floodgates that stop your opponent from resolving their effects for Tibor, which is really good news.
It's just past his turn. Thunder King Ryo comes down.
Wow, this is a very pretty hate machine, this deck.
Yep.
With so many answers to the special summons and to the monster effects and to the search effects. He's got like something for everything here.
He has, yeah.
This is quite the triple punch, really. And he also, I mean, speaking of punches, Thunder King Ryo packs one with 1,900 attacks. So suddenly Olliver Lukenda is on a clock and he needs to find something. Although with so many cards in hand, it doesn't look too bad for him.
Well, he can't search anything to be able to bring out any of the cards in his hand. He does have a Raigeki to get rid of the field. Unfortunately, Zhao will search for
the next monster.
Yes.
Right. So even though you said that ZIng might not be perfectly positioned against Nekroz, this particular build with Mistake, with Skill Drain, is faring quite well so far, holding its ground.
Now
And it's back to Tibor.
He has a lot of options depending on what ZIng he's going to draw into. Now, he hasn't unfortunately drawn into any at the moment, which is a problem for him. If he had something like a Pulau, that would stop spell effects happening, and he'd be able to get out a rank 7.
So just give Tibor like 2 or 3 more turns, and he's going to have everything to stop any effect that Olliver can throw at him.
What did Olliver just draw into there?
It seems...
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, not very helpful for him.
No, none of the monsters are really helpful here. So now you can see from the side what these guys are. It's very different to play. Also, this table is gigantic.
It is huge.
And it all adds to, well, the extra pressure of sitting in the feature match when you know that every little mistake is going to be picked apart by our lovely Twitch chat. Somebody else outside called it the Burning Abyss. I immediately stepped in and said, nope, we got the greatest fans in the world. All of you are lovely people. And you've never said anything bad about the stream. So thank you for that. All right, so Olliver has to play defense here. Just sets a card, sets a monster. And Tibor is going to town with his Thunder King again. He did draw into another answer, really. Bottomless trap hole. But what he needs is something that pressures Olliver a little bit more, I think. Like you said, another ZIng monster.
Yep. Now the attack's happening, and a Valkyrus is stopping that.
So, looking at Olliver's deck list, what does he have? What does he want to draw into that can turn this whole thing around?
Mystical Space Typhoon is basically one of his options, or any of his ritual spell cards, really. And he doesn't know that there's a bottomless trap hole there. And he has just...
He's playing 2 copies of the Mystical Space Typhoon in his main deck. Oh, the bottomless trap hole is a card we haven't seen in quite a while.
No, it's not as used as much in the main deck anymore. It's usually a side deck card. Now, he's been Raigeki'd, so Zhao is going to go and get another ZIng monster.
And there we go.
And that is Tauti. Now, Tauti means that when you synchro with it, the monster that you synchroed cannot change control. And it's also the only tribute summonable ZIng monster. Not a lot of people actually play it, but it is a big guy.
So you're playing it for the stats mostly?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, some interesting choices here in this particular build. And there's Tauti. Let's bring it up on the right-hand side for you guys.
Oh, so it looks like there is going to probably be a synchro play. And
Exceed summon.
Yeah.
We
So
haven't
that's an Exiton Knight. Ooh. It's unfortunately, its effect is negated due
with
to
the
skill drain.
Yeah. But
I'm not quite sure whether he realised that.
he's
Good job. You've paid
does he
for
have
nothing.
the Book of Eclipse from his hand
That wouldn't
to
matter.
flip it face down?
It doesn't flip spell and trap cards face down.
No, but his own monster.
Eh.
Because it needs to be face up on the field to be negated by skill drain.
Oh, that is a good point.
So he
You have a good point.
he can resolve it. So Tibor now has to chain anything, or well, can chain it something. He could chain the bottomless trap hole. But so far he doesn't really have a reason to do that. And also he really doesn't want to chain the bottomless trap hole, of course, because it gets rid of the monster, and then again skill drain would no longer negate the effect.
That's correct.
So most likely Tibor is just going to sit there and not do anything.
Well, so I don't know whether bottomless trap hole misses timing there, because the last thing to happen is the activation of effect, not a summon.
Oh no, well it hits play, and then you start a chain with its effect. Oh no, it happens in a new chain. It has nothing to do with the summon, right?
It's a quick effect. Well, it can chain to its own summon.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, nothing happens really. Yeah, once per chain during your main phase. It's not when it's summoned, of course. Yes, so you are indeed correct. Tibor has 0 options here, apart from flipping a mystical space typhoon on his own card.
And there's the Book of Eclipse.
Yeah, there's that telegraph play. So again, in case you're not familiar with the rules, skill drain says negate the effects of all face-up monsters on the field. What I'm not 100% aware of is Tibor has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards, and Olliver has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. I think Tibor had one more. Yeah, he had 6. So if Tibor uses his own Mystical Space Typhoon to get rid of any other card, doesn't the effect of Evil Swarm Exciting Knight simply disappear? Or is it only at activation? Has more total cards.
I believe it's only activation.
Yeah, it's only on activation. So, okay, the correct play, I guess, would have been for Tibor, once the Evil Swarm Exciting Knight hit play, to right away use the Mystical Space Typhoon?
You could have done that, but then you would have just changed the extra night effect. That's the benefit you get of it being a quick effect.
Yeah. So there wasn't any way for Tibor to play around that scenario.
Not currently, no.
And, well, I gotta give it up to Olliver Lukenda for identifying that play in the first place. Finding that out, that is not a very common play for the Nekroz archetype, to go with something that is not named Nekroz.
It was the only out that he had, really.
So, well, excellent read from the veteran. Very good execution. Being aware of how the cards are working with that Book of Eclipse, which is usually only used to shut down a chinlock, really. And suddenly, Olliver Lukenda is sitting in the driver's seat. And Tibor Tojzan has got the Raigeki and a Torrential Tribute. And that's it. Gets rid of the Raigeki, which also clears out the Exciting Knight.
And clears out his hand as well, so that he's not going to have to worry about
Trishula.
a Trishula.
Okay, well, I guess that's something. Maybe that is why Tibor dumped his 2 YCS cards earlier to play around that possible Exciting Knight play.
Yeah, it's possible. Wait, so it would be... I don't believe he had any cards in his hand at that point as well, so actually worked around a Trishula.
I think he was holding on to the Raigeki for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not...
Yeah, he had that Raigeki for a long, long time.
So sometimes there are reasons to ditch 2 of your cards for no benefit, really. I'm not sure if this was one of those situations. Anyway, going back to our match at hand. Olliver just summoned Senju again. There's so much Surge in his hand again. With a Manchu, with a Senju.
And now he can actually search.
And there's the Kaleidoscope. And this is very bad news for Tibor indeed. Nekroz of Unicorn. with the Herald of the Arclight being sent to the graveyard, which will allow him to search his deck for, well, basically a ritual card, either a monster or a spell. And what is Tibor looking for here? What outs does he have to fight back?
Against this?
Yep.
He could do with... A Mind Crush would be really quite helpful for all the searchings that are happening. Another Mistake would also be happy. Dark Hole he's already used Raigeki. He could also actually do with having a tuner and a Yang-Zing monster on the field at the same time.
He's got a lot of cards that are good when he's ahead, like a Fiendish Chain and the Skill Drain and the Solemn Warning that he can say when his opponent is trying to fight back. He just says no and negates the effects of a monster or of whatever he's going to play. But he doesn't have that many cards that say when I am behind and I'm not sitting in the driver's seat.
Oh, and here is the card that kills Yang-Zing.
That's the Abyss Dweller, negating all graveyard effects.
All effects that would activate in the graveyard, which is all of Yang-Zing.
So, even though Olliver Lukenda wasn't familiar with how the deck worked exactly at the start of the game, he now has a pretty good idea.
He quickly figured it out.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Trench Tribute chaining the Abyss Dweller means that there is no special summons happening.
So now Tibor is completely out of cards, while Olliver, as you can see on the right hand side, has 4 more cards in hand, and he's not going to be done anytime soon. He still got all these searches in from his graveyard. He can add more ritual spell cards from his deck to his hand, thin out his deck, and this is where the Nekroz deck really shines. This is the perfect situation for him, where he wants to be, and dictate the pace of the game.
Anything they need, they've got it.
Yeah.
Now he's playing a Trishula. Oh wait, no, sorry, there's Valkyrus. It wasn't quite updated in there. That he had one in his hand.
So lots of movement happening in Olliver's hand. And how does this feel when you're playing Nekroz the whole day and you're just shuffling your deck over and over again? Is there some point in time where you're just getting tired of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to use your deck as your hand, which is what Nekroz does.
All right, so how quick is Olliver going to wrap things up here? Assuming that he does wrap up the game?
At the moment, the Yang-Zing player has nothing. And there is a Valkyrus with 2/9 attack on the field. He's going to start chipping away at life points very, very quickly. And I believe he's also setting himself up to start playing more cards. Yeah, there's Bryanak, which is getting a Dance Princess.
Oh, he's playing the Dance Princess. Very important card in some matchups. I'm not seeing it too often. But every once in a while it makes a good and lasting impression.
Yep, and there's a Unicorn. Unicorn, again, a really big problem for Yang-Zing, as all of the monsters that they really want to get out is in the extra deck. That's Mystical Space Typhoon on the Mistake.
And
yeah,
Olliver, he's just like, here's a picture I'm going to paint, look at that writing on the wall, and then we can save some time and advance the game too. And Tibor cannot be happy with how that first game went down.
Now it's an interesting game because it looked like Yang-Zing was doing really, really well, but then Nekroz just had that one out and suddenly was able to.
Yeah, it's very hard to say that Nekroz has an out. It was like the Nekroz player, Olliver Lukenda, found a way out with that Exciter-Knight, a card we haven't really seen in quite a while.
Yeah, Exciter-Knight hasn't really been doing much lately, and it's mostly because people will just play around it whenever they can. But it's nice to see him out doing something.
Yeah.
Although XE's the extra deck and the XE's monsters that Nekroz really run are there to be out as well as anything else. So
the interesting thing is that Tibor's deck was put together to fight Nekroz.
Yep.
and he lost that advantage, the element of surprise. He wasn't able to win the first game in convincing fashion, or well, at all. So, what is he going through in his head right now? This is not going to be a good situation for him. He's playing Shadow Imprisoning Mirror in his side deck, Light Imprisoning Mirror, Mind Crush, the Transmigration Prophecy, Imperial Iron Wall, Chain Disappearance, System Down, Kaiser Colosseum.
Yes, Kaiser Colosseum, because ZIng can make one guy that is immune to everything. And then Kaiser Colosseum's going to sit there and go, you can't summon more monsters than I can.
All right. And a Foolish Return, where you can select one card in your opponent's graveyard, return it to the deck. Also, not something we see very often.
So we're going to see Mind Crush going in there, definitely. And probably Imperial Iron Wall as well, just to stop any searches.
All right. And for Olliver, what is he going to do? He's got Maxi, Denko Sekka, Shared Ride. You're just going to say stop when I name a card that you're like, okay, he's going to play this.
Yeah, the old Shared Ride is nice, but there's not as much searching going on.
He's got another Space Typhoon, which is probably going to see play.
Yeah.
Vanity's Emptiness, 3 Mind Crush, 2 Royal Decree, and a Breakthrough skill.
Well, we're going to see a Royal Decree come in, most definitely. Because you really don't want Mistake to be hitting you if all you're doing is searching.
Yeah.
Denko Sekka is also a good choice, and Maxi is kind of ridiculous against ZIng, because ZIng summon a lot.
Yeah. All right, so both guys are getting ready for the second game. Olliver on the right side and Tibor on the left side. And keep in mind, guys, this is lots and lots of pressure. Sitting in that feature match area with the spotlight on you, and I'm not talking that like in some metaphorical way. I'm talking about actual lights that are shining in your face, which is very nice. We are having that 8 rounds a day.
Yes, yes we are.
And if you're not used to it, it can confuse quite something out of you. All right, it seems like Tibor is going first in the second game. Back, Ryan and Michael are coming back, and they are now looking at the hands of both guys to write down the contents so we can show them to you guys. Also, we are aware of what's going on in the Twitch chat, at least to some degree. If you want to see someone featured, and you're like, I know somebody who's playing a very interesting deck, maybe like Tibor playing ZIng, let us know. We will try to get them if they are doing well. I know for a fact that we got a couple of Paul Cooper fans in our audience. So, and it's been a while. He's been over from the US a couple of times. I think we've never featured him, to be honest.
I don't think so. I think there was one time where we thought that he was there and he wasn't, and we were going to feature him, but then we couldn't. Now, looking at the game, we've kicked off, and we have Tibor starting.
Almost dropping his entire hand.
Yes. The only thing in his hand now is the ZIng Path.
And the right key. Yeah.
Now, Fiendish Chain has come in. Oh, no, Fiendish Chain has just seen play. Bian, ZIng Creation. Now, ZIng Creation, when a ZIng monster is destroyed, or sorry, when a monster is destroyed, you can special summon a ZIng monster from your deck. So it's going to allow 2 monsters to come out when that card is destroyed. Now 2 Unicorn.
And Olliver starts with a Chin Releaser of Rituals
Set, which is interesting.
It's also not a card you want to set normally, but I don't think it hurts really.
I believe it has a high enough defense to not have to worry about it.
I think it was even 2000. Yes. So good for Olliver, I guess. Getting some early damage. And it's an interesting setup. He's playing Nekroz Mirror, Trishula Unicorn, 2 copies of Unicorn, and a Kaleidoscope. He's missing a few pieces here.
A little bit.
He's missing the search cards.
He's also missing the monsters to really get Trishula or Unicorn out. Well, let's see if that changes with this draw.
All right. There's a Denko Sekka. That is very good news for Olliver.
Oh.
That's such a strong card. Immediately hitting play without any delay. He draws into the card. Brian, lightning speed. He was able to just put it up for us on the app and immediately hit play.
So, here comes down a Unicorn.
And, well, now the fun begins.
Now, it's really, really interesting because, well, when Bian dies, it's just going to special summon one guy rather than two because the creation isn't ready to be able to give him that advantage.
Is it that you should have flipped the creation beforehand, or you don't expect Denkoseka?
No, generally, a lot of people flip it before, just as attack is declared, rather than...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you want to keep it well close to your heart for as long as possible, not give away what you're having.
You don't want it to just... You don't want it to get hit, because it's one of those things that if there's monsters out, it's going to get hit.
Yeah. And such good news for Olliver, who doesn't have to fear mistake or anything as long as Denkoseka is on the field. He can now resolve all of his searches, knowing full well that Tibor is in a very desperate situation. However, there is the Raigeki that can get Tibor out of that little lock, if you want to call it that way. But then the Chin releaser is going to end up in the graveyard, which is also not very good for him.
All he really has in hand is a Yangzing Path and a Yangzing Creation, which really doesn't help if you don't have a monster. And the fact that there isn't enough Yangzing cards in the graveyard as well.
All right, so the next Yangzing monster hits play.
And that's the Xiao 2.
It's also Fiendish Chain doesn't really do much against Denkoseka.
No. Bryanak goes to the graveyard. It's going to go fetch one of its friends.
Bryanak and friends?
Yes, Bryanak and friends. Having a magical adventure. With rituals and stuff.
Yeah, you're painting a lovely picture there. All right, well, we're getting some information here from our lovely audience telling us that Steven Jacobs is playing Frog Monarch. What do you think about that?
Frog Monarch is great. I absolutely love Monarchs, but that's because I come from the era where Monarch was the format. So, I like all the support, but it's just missing a little bit more. And there it goes. Trishula is down.
Trishula.
And the Jin lock is up as well.
Yeah, that's really crucial. If he's going to hit the Raigeki in Tibor's hand, this game might be over. If he doesn't, Tibor can fight back. But the odds are definitely not in his favor here.
And there's no point getting rid of any of the set cards.
And again, Olliver Lukenda, like, shutting down his opponent, denying him the moves that he normally wants to perform to put some pressure. Not looking good for Tibor Tojzan. And flawless execution so far from Olliver Lukenda.
He's really checking over that, but... Oh, and here's the roll, and one hits. And what's a hit? Down it goes.
We don't see it yet.
Just waiting for him to put it down. Raigeki.
Oh, it is the Raigeki.
And that's the game.
Wow.
There is nothing that
Olliver
can happen now.
Lukenda.
But to be honest with you, he can now attack for game regardless. Can he not? Or is
Yeah,
he
no,
not?
that was in main phase 2.
That was in main phase 2. Excellent.
So
Okay.
that was the royal flush for Olliver Lukenda. Tibor Tojzan really needs something. I think he's got a dark hole in his
He
deck.
does have a couple of dark holes, because dark hole is amazing with Yangzing. It just becomes another Raigeki.
But he cannot special summon. He cannot use any of his any of his trap cards really because of Denkoseka.
Nope, nothing.
So, wow, this is not a situation you want to be in.
So path creation and Fiendish Chain.
He did throw into a
And-
skill drain.
Oh,
and
skill drain.
wow, that's dead on board.
Yep.
That
That's-
is dead on board. Yeah, he's
Oh,
wow.
like Tibor knows he is like he knows he's lost. There's no
Yeah.
point just sitting there and looking at those cards.
Yeah.
Wow, that was
And
that was
so
brutal.
interesting. After the first game, you saw that Tibor was able to apply a lock with like 3 cards really, with the Rai-O, with the skill drain, with mistake, I think.
Yes,
Yes.
but it was completely and totally messed up by the fact that Eclipse flips your own monsters face down as well.
Yeah, And then the second game, like, I mean, can you really predict that your opponent is going to bring out Accident Knight and Abyss Dweller to fight your strategy?
If you're playing ZIng, yes.
Okay.
Basically,
Like, these are the cards I need to-
Abyss Dweller is basically going to be the card that you're going to face if you're playing ZIng, because it completely shuts down everything that you're doing.
All right.
And as we know, Accident Knight.
But then, so the first game, he needs like 3 cards to apply a lock. Still, the lock gets picked apart, really,
Completely.
by Olliver's excellent execution, finding the right tools in his extra deck. The second game, one Denko Sekka makes all the difference.
Yep, Denko Sekka is a completely ridiculous card,
So
and I love it.
yeah, we haven't said it right. It's the Cold Wave on legs.
Cold Wave on legs. We
Yeah.
haven't said that in a long time.
Yeah, it's about that time again.
Yeah.
All right, anything. We are trying to talk to Olliver Lukenda. We have had him here before, so I'm 100% certain that he's going to be a great interview guest. What should we ask him? What is there that we really need to talk about in his deck?
Honest with you, I mean, in his deck, he's running a very, very simple, straightforward Nekroz build. I mean, he's running his hand traps. He's got his DD Warrior Lady just ready, just in case.
What do you think about the Dance Princess?
Remind me what Dance Princess does.
It makes sure that your ritual spell cards cannot be negated.
Oh,
and that is
that's kind of
sometimes
ridiculous.
really, really good if your opponent has something like a Naturia Beast, since we're talking about that 6 Samurai earlier.
Well, something that, of course, Nekroz has started playing as well is Solemn Scolding.
Yes.
And you really don't want your rituals to be negated with that.
Yeah. So it might be interesting tech choice for this weekend.
Yeah.
And hard to argue, really. Other than that, you said pretty straightforward.
Very, very straightforward.
So I guess it's all about preparation for him, knowing his outs, knowing his opponent's possibilities. And that's something we're going to talk about in just a second. Anything else you want to let the viewers know about that? Because I think you're a defender of ZIng, generally speaking.
Yes, ZIng is a lot of fun for me. I've featured the deck before, and the version that I was playing was get out something big and something that's not going to be affected by anything very, very quickly. The version with skill drain, I personally am not a fan of.
Okay.
Simply because it's nice for your synchro guys to have effects as well.
It can also be confusing if you forget about your own skill drain and drop your hand. Like I heard.
Yeah, I heard that some player.
All right. Okay, we're going to be right back with Olliver Lukenda. That was it for our round 2 feature match interview. Coming up in just a second. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back.